What happens when two seasoned business leaders get together? They talk shop, of course. Sit back and listen in as Scott DeLong and Vince Moiso share from their experience around current issues facing executives, entrepreneurs, and their leadership teams. The CEO Podcast starts now.
Hey everybody, Vince Moiso here with the CEO Podcast. I'm here as always with Scott DeLong.
Hey everybody.
And we have a very special guest today, Nick Portillo. Nick's company is Portillo Sales and Marketing. And what's great about the topic that we're going to discuss today, Nick works with his father, and his father, who's been a longtime broker in the food service industry, they started this business together back in 2015 and continue to work together at an incredibly high level. And they have found just a very, very successful formula in not only working together, but creating this generational business. And as people know, you can go on the SBA site, you can find these statistics at a lot of different sources, but the odds are very stacked against creating successful generational businesses. Usually by generation 2, especially by generation 3, there's a lot of failure that starts to occur. I think it gets below sub 20% success rate at that point, and it can become very challenging unless there's certain things that you put in place. So we thought it'd be a great idea to have Nick Portillo come on and really share from that experience. So Nick, can you just give us a little bit of background on yourself and your business, of course?
Yeah. So my dad and I, we started our company back in 2015. At that time, I had just graduated from college about 6 days prior, and he had been in the industry for a long time. And he said, "Hey, I got this idea. Would you want to go forward with it?" And I said, "No, I don't really want to. I want to be a financial advisor. I want to help people with their money problems." And he said, "Okay." So started doing some interviews with some of the larger wealth management firms out there. And in the meantime, he's like, "Why don't you just, come help me out? We'll buy some computers. We'll open up a little office, like 200 or 300 square foot office." I said, "Okay." And a day turned into a week, turned into a month, and it, has now turned into over 8 years together. And we're in the food service industry, and we represent food manufacturers, some really cool and unique brands. And we help them go to market by being their sales and marketing arm in the states that we cover, which is California, Nevada, and Hawaii. It's been a really fun run together, and I think I've learned a lot about myself. I've learned a lot about him. He's learned a lot about himself, and then also our relationship as well. It's just been one heck of a ride for sure.
Well, Nick, I can tell you personally, it's been my honor to coach both you and your dad in many strategic planning sessions and really learn about your business at a deeper level. And I can honestly say that the synergy that you and your dad have working together is a part of your success. There's no question about that. And oftentimes people, so getting off the generational business model, it's just working with family members in general, right? Can be a struggle. And there's countless examples, of course, but you and your dad have found just an incredible formula. And one thing that I want to point out, because I've witnessed it myself, is just acknowledging the great leadership that your dad has, and he has the ability to step aside, right, and allow you to lead. He really has done a great job. And in our conversations, whether I've been one-on-one with John or whether we've been together in our planning sessions, his willingness to step aside, put you out in front, make you the face of the business, it's really incredible, because I've heard and have coached many of businesses where it's literally the opposite. The complete opposite, where that first generation just does not want to relinquish any sort of control at all. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I can. It's funny when you think about a family-owned business. One, being that it's family-owned and everybody can relate to family, right? And so there's that personal connection there to it. And when you hear about a family-owned business, I feel, or working with family members, there's two extremes. It works really well or it doesn't work at all. And like, there's a lot of times you don't see that middle. We're definitely on the good extreme where it works really, really well. My dad has strengths and that are different than my strengths, and he has weaknesses that are different than my weaknesses. So we have a nice bounce off one another, good yin and yang, if you will.
And each of you understand the strengths and weaknesses of the other as well as yourselves, right?
Exactly.
That's the key.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah. And I think one thing that my dad does very, very well, and I think has led to our success, is him being, one, older than me in age, and then two, having far more experience in this industry that we're in the food service industry. He allows me to make decisions. He allows me to be myself. He allows me to implement ideas where I really do feel like a 50-50 partner with him.
Yeah.
I see a lot of times those relationships, it's either one person has all the experience, has all the knowledge, or so they believe, and it just doesn't work. But him, he's very much, right there in the fight with me. He puts me out there on the front line. He allows me to make mistakes. And I'm very appreciative of him for that. I've
had just the opposite experience as well in my own business. I've had 3 of my children that have worked for me. And 2 wouldn't anymore, right? But 1, because of the relationship and the dynamics, we were able to deal with that. And that happened to be a female child. Both the boys, we just butted heads. And, then I got into this power pose thing. Just not wise, not good for the business, not good for the family, not good for any of that. And there's such a fine dance that needs to take place to do it well. It just is. And it takes the older person to step back a little bit and have a little humility. I think that's a big part. I didn't have that humility to allow my children to run.
Totally.
And the fact that your dad, one of the things that I really like that you just said, Nick, and that is that your dad does have a tremendous amount of industry experience. Mm-hmm. And what I have seen, unfortunately, in several like family business models, that person is not sharing that experience, is not paying it forward, right? And the best thing that you could do is pass that knowledge down, right? And there's no better way than to just get you into the mix and experience it with them. So the other thing that I really like that you said is that he's putting you out in the front line. He's allowing you to make those mistakes. So listeners, I hope you heard all of that, because and frankly, I don't care if it is a family business or not. I think any leader that is allowing for that to take place, it's why. I mean, if you heard Nick talk about his background, he graduated college in 2015. That was only 8 years ago, and got right into this business with his dad. Immediately, 8 years later, here they are, incredibly successful with what they do, and they're scaling their business and will continue to do so because, and I really think this, because John has really pulled you into that mix in a great way, not afraid to fail, and allow you to experience that yourself, but also impart that knowledge on you. So that's why you've seen that rapid growth.
Well, there's another half of that too, I think. And Nick, I don't know you well enough to say this, but I'm gonna make this assumption, and I want you to verify it or not. But that youthful exuberance is a positive as well, and you need to be able to take it, not just have him give it, but it had to be partly you as well, grabbing it and saying, "I'm going to do it."
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember back, it was kind of funny when we first started our business. In the first, I think 30 or 60 days, somewhere like that, we had an interview with a potential manufacturer client. And I remember my dad telling me, okay, in the presentation, you've got these slides. I want you to practice these slides, and you're going to deliver these slides. And in the presentation, we were at a hotel making the presentation. And when my time came up, I was so nervous. I was shaking. It was so obvious. I was wearing a tie. Like, I totally stood out. And we didn't end up getting the business, but probably 5 years later, we ended up interviewing for that same client again. And the people were like, wow, you've really come a long way. They're like, I remember when you were shaking, you didn't even know what the heck you were talking about. And we ended up getting the line the second time. So, it just kind of shows, again, my dad just throwing me out there, good, bad, or indifferent, and letting me succeed and fail and learn from those things.
That's a great story, man. That's it. I mean, that just sums it up. Well, even better is how quickly, so 5 years later, get in front of that same company and then having them recognize how quickly you've progressed in your own career. So that's pretty awesome. Nick, so talk about a couple other things for me, because I really want to kind of understand from your own perspective within your business, within your relationship with your dad, all of the things. So what are the lessons learned? So you're 8 years together at this point, and I think the story that you just told exemplifies that, going from one place to, where you guys are at today. Can you talk about what's worked and what hasn't?
I remember one funny thing when I again, going back to my first year in business with him, I was trying to set up appointments with customers, and I was emailing them or sending them a note on LinkedIn or whatever it may have been. And my dad's like, if you want to be successful in this business, you need to pick up the phone or you need to go see them in person. That's how it goes. No more hiding behind the screen. He goes, one thing I've noticed in school, they didn't teach you how to speak to adults. Yeah. And he goes, I want you to pick up the phone and start talking to people and get comfortable doing that. So I think that would be lesson number one that I remember to this day. And I feel far more comfortable talking to adults. And even at this point, at 30 years old, any room that I walk into in my industry, for the most part, I am the youngest person in the room. And, I could play to my strengths of definitely that, having that youthful energy and bringing innovation. But then I also have to overcome, hey, does this young guy know what he's talking about? What is his experience? And so again, my dad helping me on that journey has proven to be very fruitful for us. I think another thing that I've learned through doing this business is there's no quick way to success. It really takes time. I think especially a lot of people in my generation, they think that they could become the overnight millionaire, but it just takes time of doing, your practice for every day, every week, every month, for years over years over years. And that's those overnight successes is people don't see all of the back work it took you to get there. And I think that's a big thing that I've had to learn, especially when you first start out. People don't necessarily like things that are new, and they don't always like to change as well. So you need to empower them to embrace new and to overcome change.
Let's go back to that first point, because I think this is really important.
Yeah.
They don't teach you this in school. I actually, when I was teaching the entrepreneur class at Chapman, that's one of the things that was important to me is getting these young people to learn how to talk to an adult.
Yes.
Such a big deal. Now, it takes the adult to be receptive too. It certainly does, because they can be dismissive and not allow that. But for the young entrepreneurs out there, it is hiding behind your screen, texting people is not going to get it done. I mean, the more that you can get face to face with folks, the closer you can build a relationship. Now, we're on Zoom right now, and feeling it okay, right? But if we were in person, there would just be something different about this conversation as well, right? The connection that the three of us would end up having would be just a little bit deeper. And I don't think a lot of young people see that because they're busy social media, texting, typing with their thumbs. And I'm not disparaging youth at all, because I'm a big believer in what they can bring to the party. But that's the one old man thing I'm going to tell you. Kids that are out there listening, listen to Nick. Learn how to talk to an adult. It's a big deal.
That's right. I remember
it's the price of admission into the game of business is really what it is.
There you go.
Yeah.
Totally.
So thanks for bringing that up. I thought that was brilliant.
Yeah.
Give your dad tell your dad I want to shake hands with the man. That was like, good for him.
That sounds good. Yeah. I remember back when I first started dating my now wife, in my first couple of years of being with her and building a relationship with her parents, and for whatever reason, I felt I just couldn't say their name, Eric and Shelley. Like I think it was just the youthfulness in me. You grow up saying Mr. Portillo or Mr. Johnson or Mr. DeLong, whatever it may be. And you get so formal. And then just saying someone's first name was just as elementary as that was. That was one of the things that you have to just kind of practice.
Yeah, I still have that problem with coaches, right? And people that coached me when I was younger and in college and all that. I'm calling them by their first name because that's their name. It's not coach, right? Mm-hmm. We have a different relationship now. Back then I had to call him coach. Now, but it's tough. Right? It's tough to break that barrier, but the connection can be made a little bit deeper when you get to do that. You get to elevate yourself to a level as grown up like they are.
That's right. That's right.
Well, we just talked a lot about in our previous podcast, we talked a lot about connection. Mm-hmm. And I think what the essence of what you're talking about too is that human connection. And as you get into business, especially your business is sales. That's your business. It's the essence of what you do. Mm-hmm. You get hired by a manufacturer to be the sales and marketing arm for them in the food service industry, right? Therefore, you have to go shake hands. You have to be face to face. There's nothing that takes the place of that. Scott talks a lot about this with communication, and he talks about the hierarchy of communication. And the number one form of communication, most powerful form of communication, is face to face, because it's a lot harder when you're face to face, and all of a sudden you have the body language that's in front of you. You've got the energy that's happening when you're face to face. You can immediately talk to somebody's objectives or whatever might be happening within that conversation. That can't happen over email. That can't happen over the same way over text. Or if you're direct messaging somebody in Instagram or whatever that might be. And so at some point, like to Scott, as he said it earlier, get away from the screen, and you've got to get out in front. Your dad understood that. So you go back to your earlier anecdote, is just to get you in front and do that presentation. Presentations are a great example, right, Nick? Because I bet by the time you did your 10th one, you're a pro. Like you got over that anxiety. You got over it, right? Right. So that nervousness went away and you understood the content. You became confident. You became comfortable in how you could present, and you were bought into your business and the business concept, and that changed for you. And that wouldn't have happened if you didn't just jump in and do that first one, right? Because we talk a lot about this. You win or you learn, right? It's such a great quote. You're constantly learning. There's no lose in that situation when it comes to business.
That's right.
So I want to go back to that face-to-face piece a little bit, just to put one little exclamation point. And I probably said this before in the podcast at some point along the way, because I truly believe this. Like, the pandemic got us better at communicating over Zoom. Mm-hmm. I pay attention to the body language. Like right now, I'm not looking at my camera. I'm looking at your face to see how you're reacting, and looking at Vince's face, and I'm seeing how things move. And I can do that, right? I've learned how to do that. We're in the same room. Instead of reading your body language, I can see your soul. I can it's just deeper. It's just, there's more to it. So folks, I'm going to tell you that it's communication hierarchy, face to face, whenever possible. Get there, get in front of them. Anyway, didn't mean to step on that, but I wanted to make an exclamation point. It is that powerful.
Yeah. I think in my own business, when I can get somebody to come to our office in Southern Cal and bring them in, and then before I even make my presentation, show them around the office, maybe meet a person or two who's sitting there, kind of start to build already in that personal connection, because people want to buy into things that they feel are their own. Kind of like going to, like a restaurant. If you think about your favorite restaurant, it's owned by somebody else. However, you feel like it's your own. And so if I can build that personal experience with you when you come into my office, and I can make it feel like it's your office as well, that I can come in anytime and just relax and just be myself here. That really goes a long way, especially in the sales world.
You get to keep customers a lot longer that way.
That's right.
Yeah. Vendors
No
and customers
question.
both, right?
Yeah.
In that thing. Hey, so let's go back to the some of the trials and tribulations and advice that you might give for people that are in this multi-generational family business. There was a program that I wanted the folks at Chapman to do, and they just couldn't figure it out politically. But it was a transitional learning experience where we would work with the young people. Because here's how I framed it to the dean. I said, listen, you've got these people that are running these companies, and they want to go to the beach. They want to retire. They want their kids to succeed. But they got this really cool Ferrari, and they're just not quite ready to throw the keys to the Ferrari to their son or daughter, right?
Right.
What does it take for them to, from your point of view, what does it take to get your dad to a spot where he could throw you the keys to the Ferrari and say, drive it, son. It's yours.
Yeah. My dad's an interesting case. I think he's somebody who could potentially work and die in the work chair. Hopefully not, but we'll see. But in terms of giving over, one big challenge, I think, especially in family-owned businesses, is one, you have to look at the size of the business that I've seen. The bigger it is, and then you bring in your kids, people might say this company is full of nepotism. Yep. So you have to be careful in that regard. Another too is let's say the father or the mother or the grandmother or the grandfather are the founder of that business, and they started from day one of mopping the floors and doing all of the dirty work and like really doing the grunt work it took to build that business. And then you bring in another generation who didn't do that, and they didn't see the sacrifice it took to get to the business to where it is. And how do you impart that on to somebody who hasn't been in the business? You see a lot of times people will say to their kids, hey, maybe go work outside of this company somewhere else first, and then come in. Once you have that experience, once you've done that grunt work, then you can come in here, assess our business, and view it with a different lens.
I had a friend the other day. I just had a conversation Saturday night with a friend who kind of did this same transition with his father's business, and he said the key for him was that when he came in early into the business, but he did every job there, from mopping the floor, did the things that the father had to do to build it right, whether it's shipping product or mopping the floor or cleaning the toilet, didn't matter. But he really, and this is a 64-year-old man, he gave credit to that foundation of doing all the grunt work that led to the dad starting the business as well. That was really helpful. Gained in credibility with the rest of the staff as well. Yeah, he'd done all those jobs. He'd been there, right?
Yeah.
And dad just didn't give him the keys to the Ferrari right away. Made him earn it.
Yeah. I do have one client, and they have been around since the 1800s, and they are on, I think it's the 5th or 6th generation. And what they do, and they've all lived in the same home in Wisconsin on the exact same plot of land. So every generation lives in this home. What they require you to do is you have to move overseas and work overseas in a completely different country. You have to get you have to get a degree, and you have to essentially leave completely in order to come back. And then once you're back, you can start to get into the business, and then they force retire you at the age of 65. So it doesn't matter if you're the CEO or the CFO. At 65, you retire if you're part of the family. And they've been doing it for, since the 1800s.
That is more specific program, like formula than I've heard before, but brilliant.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, same. I've heard, not to that level of detail, but have a friend in EO, and they're in 4th generation at this point. And it's interesting. It's interesting to hear about what gets put into place for that level of longevity. As well as I hear all the dysfunction that comes along with it too. So I think sometimes you can, I almost see it a little bit like high school football, Scott, in a lot of ways. And I'm talking public high school football, not modern day. But
that's different than high school football.
Yeah, you get what you get, right? I mean, and when you're talking about family, it's you get what you get, and so you've got to mold the business a little bit around the skill set. So I think the reason I bring that up is I go back to what you had said earlier, Nick, which was, look, you've got your strengths and your dad has his strengths and weaknesses. And Scott, I think, is the one that said it, but you guys recognize what those are. And I think you've got to be able to point that out and just call a spade, right? And then go, okay, cool. We're going to pivot or adjust the business accordingly. And that works. You guys are unique, Nick. You guys are super unique, right? In what we're talking about, because I couldn't agree with you more. The little bit that I know about your dad, I don't think he's going anywhere, anytime soon. But Scott, to your point, at least from my seat, it looks and feels like John has already pretty much given the keys to the Ferrari, and he's still going to continue to work there. So it's not this just total transition of, hey, here you go. It's recognizing my son, and I think John would say this, my son is going to do a better job than I could ever do. And therefore I need to give him, he's going to drive this Ferrari the way it should be driven. Right. Yes. And so therefore here's the keys and I want to ride with you. I'm going to sit in the passenger seat and let's go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 100% true on that. The more that he has given up and just allowed me to run with the business, I mean, sure, because I've only been doing it for 8 years, which is in the grand scheme of things is not a lot of time. So I've had a steeper learning curve and I've had to make a lot of mistakes. I've lost clients because of it. We've lost employees because of my mistakes. But by doing that, our business has been able to grow at a faster clip than if he were to just do it all himself. I think there's also value in partnership too. If I could look back and let's say he was just to do this business, I don't know if this business would have made it if it was just him as the sole owner, or vice versa with just myself. I think a lot of successful businesses, that's why you see there's partners in there, whether they're family related or not.
So is there any overlap? I mean, I was gonna talk about the partnership piece as well. It's not just family, it's partnerships, right? So I had a business years ago where I had a partner. He had his strengths, I had my strengths, and then we had some overlap where we both didn't quite agree on whose strength that was, right?
Yes.
Do you run into that very often?
I'll tell you, let me tell you something that's kind of close, is I feel my dad and we have a similar weakness, which sometimes can be difficult for our business. And that is our personality tends to be a little bit more of a people pleaser, very positive, high enthusiasm type person. And so we both have the weakness of giving people bad news. And so in our business, we have to surround ourselves with people that are comfortable doing that, because it falls under, the category of things that we don't like to do. If we have to deliver bad news, sometimes we just won't deliver it. So it's kind of an interesting dynamic in that way.
So you've solved that by bringing someone else in to handle that piece for you?
Yes.
So my partner and I didn't solve it. We just battled.
Yeah.
Which is not what I'd suggest, but bringing in someone that can solve for that weakness makes a lot of sense to me.
Exactly. Hiring people around you. We typically try to hire people that, can we bring on this person or that person to buy back our time, find somebody who can take over a role that we're doing currently that we shouldn't really be doing. Accounting is a good one. Mm-hmm. We know how to sell food in terms of balancing the budget and things like that. Can we hire somebody else to do that for us? Yeah. And so we're always trying to do that to get our time back, is find somebody who's better than us at the areas that we're not good in.
Wonderful.
Well, listen, when you're a startup, you've got to do everything, right? But
That's
then
right.
When you get to that point, recognizing that you can bring on somebody else or even outsource it, we've talked a lot about that. Your focus should be on business development. And in order to make that a reality, there's certain things that you've got to give away, and you've got to put people in place to to make that happen.
But it's not just things you don't like doing. It's things that you recognize that someone can do better so that you have more time to do what you do really well, right? There's a slight difference there than just saying, oh, I hate doing accounting.
Exactly.
Right? There's someone better at that job than me. Let them do it so I can go do what I'm best at.
Yeah.
A funny part of my dad and I's relationship is he thinks I can do everything very, very well. That's marketing, sales, accounting, everything. And so he'll constantly funnel things to me. Oh, let Nick handle it. He needs to take a look at this. Where we're always in constant discussion of, hey, I might be very good at doing this, but by being very good at this one thing, it takes away from building our economic engine. So we have to think about those types of things.
So in real estate, they call it the highest and best use. Right? So it's the highest and best use for this plot of land is it an office building? Is it a medical facility? Is it retail? Whatever it is, same thing happens with people. The highest and best use of Nick is to fill in that gap.
Correct.
Now, sometimes you have to do the other things. I get it.
Yeah.
But the highest and best use is where I want you spending your time, where I want to spend my time.
Yeah, very true.
I had a customer at the University of Nebraska one time say to me, he goes, I love my job. I said, well, what is it you love about your job? He goes, I get to do the things that I love doing. And the things that I'm not very good at, we have other people that do it.
Yeah.
Like, what a great way to love your job. You get to do the things you love doing.
Novel concept.
Yeah,
novel concept.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Right. Hey, we're at time, my friend.
We are hitting that time. So yeah, as always, I think we could continue the conversation more and more. Nick, it was great having you on. I think there was some great nuggets out of this conversation. Is there any one thing that you want to leave our listeners with that they could take away?
Whether you're 30 years old or 60 years old, never stop the pursuit of learning. I think one, it keeps your mind sharp and astute. And especially if you're on the, around my age, there's so much more of the world to learn. So never stop learning.
So my nugget came directly from you as learning how to talk to an adult. And I'm telling you, those adults, I got it. They got the gray hair, right? So the people with the gray hair want you to succeed, and they want to pass on the things that they have learned. So go ask them. Right?
That's right.
Yeah. Great. What about you, Vince? What'd you take?
Yeah, no, I just love the concept of, there's no quicker way to learn, or no quicker path to elevating your game than to just get in and play the game. I mean, you gotta do it. I hate to say it. I mean, you can read a book all you want, listen to an audio book all you want, do all the research you want, and at the end of the day, until you actually just jump in and play the game, it's hard, and you're going to lose. It's okay. You're going to lose. You're going to trip and fall along the way, and each one of those is a learning experience. So to your point, Nick, just dedicate to being a lifelong learner, no matter how that comes your way. And you'll find a quicker path to success in business. Well, I congratulate you on your success with your dad. It's an awesome story.
Thanks for being here.
You guys you're just crushing it, man. You're crushing it. So
Thanks,
I appreciate you being here and sharing your story very much.
Of course. Yeah. Thank you guys for having me on. It's been a lot of fun.
That's
All right. Well, until next time, everybody, thanks for listening, and cheers.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, everybody. Thanks.
Thank you for joining us for the CEO Podcast. Please visit us at theceopodcast.net, where you can learn more about our co-hosts and listen to past episodes. If you would like to have a discussion and dive deeper into any topic, there is also an option to contact Scott or Vince to schedule some time with them. Thanks for listening.